All right, good afternoon. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Colorado HOA Information and Resource Center's April HOA Forum. Today's presentation is going to be focused on our 2023 annual report. My name is Nick Altman. I'm the HOA Information Officer. We also have Amanda Lopez here today with us. She's the HOA registration guru with the division, as well as David Donnelly, our Education, Communication, and Policy Manager. Amanda's going to chat a bit about the HOA registration section, and David's going to enlighten us with some 2023 legislative updates. So thanks for being here, Amanda and David.
Absolutely.
Thank you all. Thank you so much for joining today.
All right, so for our attendees today, Q&A is enabled. So we look forward to answering any questions you may have on our annual report. And just as a reminder, the YouTube video will be posted to our website within a couple of business days, likely Tuesday or Wednesday of next week, sometime around then. On your screen, you should see the 2023 HOA Information Center annual report. Let's dive in. Let's begin. So this office was created in 2010 and is housed within the Colorado Division of Real Estate, which is a division of the Colorado Department of Regulatory Agencies, or colloquially known as DORA. As many of you know, the HOA Center collects and analyzes complaints received by the public. The HOA Center's stakeholders include homeowners residing with a CIC, or that stands for a common interest community, board members, community association managers, or CAMs, real estate brokers, attorneys, and other interested parties. In addition to compiling complaints, we also respond to general inquiries about the Colorado Common Interest Ownership Act, or Kiowa, and we also serve to educate and raise awareness about the rights and responsibilities of living in a Colorado CIC. So our mandate is derived from section 1210-801-3C of the Colorado Revised Statutes. And the annual report also provides an overview of recent legislative changes, which for this report will include those in the 2023 Colorado legislative section. So let's dive in here, beginning with our definitions page. So in this report, we include definitions that are commonly seen in the HOA industry. Of particular import is the term CAM, which you can see here highlighted on my cursor. A CAM is not the same thing as an HOA, which is a common misunderstanding or misconception. A CAM is a separate, distinct entity from an HOA and stands for Community Association Manager. The manager is contracted to provide services to the board and the association. Previously in the state of Colorado, CAMs were licensed from 2015 to 2019, but that program was discontinued after the governor vetoed House Bill 19-1212. Complaint category refers to the specific issues we identify when processing a complaint. Throughout the report, you'll see various charts and graphs related to complaint categories and the types of communities associated with each. So there are a couple other definitions in here, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but as you're perusing through the report, if you notice any of these definitions included, you can scroll back up to the top and you'll see that that is what the meaning of that word is anytime you see it mentioned throughout the report. One quick point to make is a few of these definitions are taken from Kiowa. For example, a common interest community. And in those cases, those will be identified with a footnote 6, which is down here. And that cites the portion of Kiowa where you can find that definition. All right, so to begin, David's going to dive into some of the legislative changes that we saw in 2023. There were 7 bills, some of which were directly related to HOAs, such as the Homeowners' Rights Task Force bill. And there were others which were only indirectly related, such as certain efforts to promote the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions in Colorado. So David, I'm going to go ahead and swap my screen over and take it away.
Excellent. I'm en route to getting my screen shared here. While that's loading up for everybody, and I zoom in, make it a little bit bigger for everyone to see. I'd like to just real quickly point out in the Q&A, one individual already asked a great question, which is, hey, where do I get this? Where can I see this report? Can I view it, download it, print it? And so anyone that's in there, you want to take a look at the Q&A button in the menu bar for your screen. Right now, it's on the top of my screen. Sometimes it's on the bottom of the screens. And there's a link there where you can access both this report that we're talking about today, as well as all of the past reports for the HOA Information and Resource Center. So with that, again, I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. I'm here and really just to talk specifically about the bills that became law in 2023. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is David Donnelly, and I'm the manager of the Education, Communications, and Policy program at the division. And that is specifically where the HOA Information and Resource Center is lodged in the Division of Real Estate. So, and as Nick indicated just a moment ago, there are really 7 bills that we're going to be talking about in both in this report as well as here today. Each of these bills was passed through the Colorado General Assembly, signed by the governor, and in every one of these cases, these are all effective as of today. Some of them had effective dates immediately upon passage, upon signature by the governor. Others had effective dates somewhere in early August. But nevertheless, we are on April 5th right now. That means at a bare minimum, these bills have been in effect for several months at this point. So, so for those of you that are hearing some of these things for the first time, take a deep breath. That's okay, but we want to make sure that you can all get in compliance. In particular, when we get to our final bill, which really requires some proactive steps to be taken by you board members in particular. That's something you want to take a deeper look at if today is the first day that you're hearing the terminology water-wise, for instance. So again, deep breath. Everything will be fine. But let's get into it from there. So I guess one before we step into the specifics of each of the bills, I do want to take one more second and just say each of these bills was already discussed in greater detail on a previous HOA Information and Resource Center forum. And the specific date of that forum was July 21 of 2023. We were able to do that because the General Assembly had closed the bill. The governor had completed his signatures and the like. So we were able to offer a more detailed legislative review HOA forum back in July. That can be viewed, a recording of that forum can be viewed on our recent HOA forums page on the HOA Center's website. So just wanted to throw that out there. So 7 bills. Some of these bills are going to be very, very directly affecting each and every one of your HOAs. Some of them are a little bit more distant, but they're very pertinent perhaps to the fact that you are merely homeowners. Over the last several years, we've seen a lot of issues with wildfires, major damages, whether it's through tornadoes, hailstorms, floods. And so one of these bills in particular is going to be talking about home ownership more generally. This is something that, as board members in particular, we want you to be cognizant of. We want you to be aware of what's going on out there in the world, so that you all, as board members, you hold the keys to the kingdom in many respects. And so the steps that you can take as board members can be very, very beneficial in order to minimize the cost of repairs for your respective homeowners. What I'm really thinking about in my brain when I'm talking about that is taking care of common area maintenance. And also having healthy reserves in place, so that when disaster strikes, if disaster strikes, let's hope it never does, but we need to be prepared for it. That you're able to take care of that. The more financial planning that you have as board members, whether that's through reserve studies or otherwise, the better off you're going to be. The more insurable each and every one of your homes, whether those are townhomes, condominiums, or single family dwellings, it doesn't matter. The steps that you can take as boards to lower those costs for your homeowners, the better off everyone will be. So with that, now I promise, here we go with the bills. The first one I'd like to talk about is House Bill HB 23-1068. This bill pertains, it's a little bit more tangentially related to HOAs specifically, but it does pertain to home insurance premiums. And the vast majority of your HOAs out there have pet policies in place. And so this bill is a good sign of where the tide is turning with respects to pets in general. So, essentially what this bill states is that insurers may not refuse to issue, they cannot cancel, they cannot refuse to renew, and they cannot increase the premiums or the rates for homeowners insurance, or increase the premiums for either homeowners insurance or fire insurance based on the breed or the mixture of breeds that a dog that is kept at a dwelling is. But there's one significant caveat to that. So I might have what looks like the most ferocious dog out there, but if I know that the animal has been deemed dangerous or has had a dangerous history, that is the one exception to this rule. So if an animal, so it doesn't matter if I've got a pit bull, for instance. That's the breed that so many people identify as. We as a culturally in this we think that pit bulls are dangerous. I'm not taking an issue on that. I'm just saying that's what a lot of people think. Whether that's true or not, irrelevant. What matters is if there's been an issue with that dog in the past. You can have a cute little Chihuahua that is a dangerous dog. It doesn't matter about size. It doesn't matter about breed. It matters about history. So that's an important thing for you all to think about as homeowners in that situation. What's important, and you will hear this question next time you all reach out to your home insurance people, if you haven't done so between August and now. Your insurer will expressly ask you a question if you know if your dog is dangerous. That is permissible. The insurer will not ask you, and they will. And in my own personal experience, they even said specifically, "I don't want to know the breed of your dog. I don't have a dog," but they had to ask this question. But they put that caveat into my question. They said, "Don't tell me about your dog, but I need to know if your dog is deemed dangerous." So my insurer just went an extra step out. Beyond that, to say, I'm not asking you about the breed because they are not allowed to ask about the breed. They are only allowed to ask if the animal is dangerous. So good food for thought for each and every one of you as homeowners out there. Next bill is a big bill. This is House Bill 23-1105. The vast majority probably of the people that are on this call are probably somewhat aware of this bill. Maybe not by its name here, but by the task forces that were created as a result of this bill. 1105 created two task forces. We're not going to discuss one of them here today because it doesn't directly pertain to homeowners associations, but that is the Metropolitan District Homeowners Rights Task Force. The one that does pertain to HOAs is appropriately named the HOA Homeowners Rights Task Force. This task force was appointed and have been holding meetings over the last several months, and are very nearly come to their conclusion and are almost ready to issue a final report. That final report will be made available to the public, as well as to the governor's office, as well as to the Colorado General Assembly sometime between, I'm going to just say now and April 15th. The due date for that report is April 15th. What the task force did through the course of these public meetings, all of which are available on our YouTube website, if you want to go back and view any of them, some of them are great. There's really some healthy and robust discussion between the task force members about what's going on out there in the real world in HOAs. Because sometimes there's that disconnect between what the law says and how the law works in the real world. And I think that the task force had some really healthy conversations about that. But the task force members looked at a variety of issues. So just to identify a few of those, they looked at issues confronting HOA homeowners' rights, fining authorities and practices, foreclosure practices, communications between board members and HOA homeowners, association records, kind of more generally, which is another topic that our HOA Center covers very often and receives lots of inquiries about as well. Complaints made to any homeowners advocacy groups, as well as complaints made to the HOA Center, and then laws affecting common interest communities. So again, that report is forthcoming. We're looking forward to it getting finalized very, very soon here, and we'll make that available to you all when it is. The next bill that we're going to talk about is House Bill 231174. This goes back to something I mentioned just a moment ago, which is the affordability and the cost of housing in Colorado, and not just in HOAs, but more generally across the entire state. Metropolitan, suburban, urban, all across the state, we've seen an increase in the cost of housing. And there's a wide variety of reasons for that, which we don't need to get into here, but this bill created a requirement that by April 1st of 2025, and then annually thereafter, the Division of Insurance is going to issue a report on the cost of reconstructing homes in Colorado. Again, we talked about urban, suburban, rural just a moment ago. Building a house in the mountains is a whole lot more expensive than building a house in the suburbs of Colorado Springs, as a general rule, like for like at least. And so one of the things that this, amongst various other topics that this report should be addressing when it comes out next year, is the cost based on geographic variances. So and so that's a really important aspect to what this report is going to look like. I just had a question from someone saying, "Hey, can you please scroll down to the bill you're talking about?" And I just did that. So thank you very much for that recommendation. I apologize. And again, this report it will be available for everyone there on public. So moving to the next bill, and this is a bill that's I think is a really interesting one. House Bill 231233, this bill has several sections that pertain to tenants, so the landlord-tenant relationship, but it also has several sections that specifically call out common interest communities, CICs. The bill is moving forward. It absolutely encourages the allowing of electric charging stations and parking for electric vehicles. Every community is different, and you've heard me say that lots of times if you've been on task force on forum meetings before. But this is another one where that adage applies. The bill requires that a board shall not prohibit a unit owner from the installation of either a level 1 or a level 2 electric charging vehicle station in their unit, in an assigned or deeded parking space, that is part of part of or is assigned to that unit, or a parking space that is accessible to both the unit owner and other unit owners. And what that means is that if you have a parking lot because you live in a condominium complex, for instance, that's where that second one comes from. For those of you that have a single family dwelling with a private garage on your property, you were able to have installed your a level 1 or a level 2 charging station previously, very likely, unless you were going to install it on the outside of your homes in many cases. Because if it was in your garage, it was protected and covered and not visible to the so it wasn't an architectural design matter. But if you were going to install one of these on the outside of your home or in a common parking lot, that's why I made that reference to a lot of these communities are different. So how this bill will apply does vary from community to community. But it is important to point out that installation of these of any of this equipment shall be at the unit owner's expense. So if I'm asking my board to install this, they cannot prohibit it. They can require some basic aesthetic designs, like maybe they need a fence around it or something like that. Or they might say, we're going to put it over in this corner over here where there's less traffic, so that there's less, so that it's not blocking the sidewalk. There's lots of considerations that they can take to part there, but they cannot prohibit the installation of it. So moving forward basis. Again, I think that we're going to see more and more bills that pertain to to electric vehicles and other public policy prohibitions, which we'll get to in just a little bit. So with the next bill that we're going to talk about, it's 1287. This bill it really does not apply directly to HOA governance and policies, we included it in our list this year because we receive a lot of inquiries about short-term rentals in your communities, and so because that is an important issue for so many of you. So what this bill, the long and short of this bill says is that short-term rentals are very much within the purview of county regulators. But what I'd like to do is take the opportunity while we're talking about short-term rentals is to point out that what this means for HOAs is that homeowners must comply both with the requirements of an HOA as well as the county regulations. So let's say your community allows short-term rentals. Wonderful. But that does not mean that just because it's allowed by the HOA that I don't have to go get what is oftentimes called a short-term rental license from the county or from the municipality. You have to comply with both of these things. Let's flip that scenario slightly different. If your county allows short-term rentals, but your community's declaration does not, you can't do short-term rentals if they're prohibited by your declaration. So compliance with both the HOA's governance documents as well as the counties are imperative. So that's the takeaway that I'd like you to all have from House Bill 23-1287. Just two more to go here. And this next one's a real quick one. I mentioned public policy prohibitions just a moment ago, and that's what SB 2316 pertains to. This is the main purpose behind this bill was to promote the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions across our state. And it actually did change some specific language in Kiowa. It helped clarify the definition specifically of what an energy efficient measure is, and it clarifies what a heat pump is in Kiowa. So other energy efficiency measures may be solar panels, they may be a rain barrel, they may be here a heat pump, an awning over some windows. Those are some of the common energy efficiency measures that we hear about and that are discussed in Kiowa. So just a further clarification there. And then finally, I'd like to talk to you about the WaterWise bill that was passed. This is referred to as Senate Bill 23-178. This bill allows owners that are residing in common interest communities a lot more flexibility when they're deciding whether or not to install xeriscaping or non-vegetative turf grass or drought-tolerant vegetation. And at the onset here, everyone needs to understand that this bill only applies to units that are single-family detached homes. The bill does not, I repeat, does not apply to attached homes that share one or more walls. Therefore, condo owners, townhome owners, you don't need, this one doesn't apply to you. Even if you've got yard, it doesn't apply. The drafters of this bill were very specific. They said, we only want that at this time, they only wanted this to apply to single family detached homes. And what the bill says is that although an association can still adopt reasonable design and aesthetic guidelines, they cannot prohibit the use of non-vegetative turf grasses. They cannot unreasonably require the use of hardscape in more than 20% of the landscaping area. They must allow the unit owner an option that consists of at least 80% drought-tolerant plantings. And then finally, they cannot prohibit vegetable gardens in the front, back, or side yards of unit owners' properties. And vegetable gardens simply means a plot of ground or an elevated soil bed in which pollinator plants or flowers or vegetables or herbs, fruits, leafy greens, and other edible plants are cultivated. So, and then the one final point on the WaterWise bill, and this goes back to what I opened up with, which is if this is the first time you're hearing about this as a board member, that's okay. But every association is required to develop at least 3, count of 1, 2, 3, pre-planned WaterWise garden designs that are pre-approved for installation in front yards within that common interest community. So as a homeowner, you should be able to reach out to your your board and say, I'd like to, I'm contacting a landscaper because I'm going to do some landscape work. I'd like a copy of the 3 pre-planned WaterWise garden designs that you have here that you've already approved so that I can take those into consideration. If I deviate from one of those plans, I have to get your approval, board members. But if I follow your pre-planned designs to the T, it's already approved by you. So board members, if you haven't done that yet, if you haven't come up with these 3 pre-planned designs, I would recommend that you start to consider doing that because it's April 5th right now. Springtime is upon us. It's been beautiful outside. Summer's coming soon. And that's when a lot of this landscaping work is going to be done. So this is the first planting season that we've hit since this new bill came into play. So I went, so get on that. And our presentation from back in July specifically identifies a couple of resources where you can get some of these pre-planned designs. They exist out there already. You're not landscape architects. We get that. The law gets that. So you can work on that by reaching out to some of the resources that we've provided in some of our previous forums. And with that, I'm going to, I guess, I'm still sharing here. So why don't, actually, Nick, I'll let you take back over. but Amanda Lopez is going to speak to you all for a few minutes about the registration process.
Yes, thank you, David. That was really good. So thank you so much. Let me share my screen. Hang on one moment. Try to find the right one to share here. Can you guys see that? Can you guys see the screen or no?
Yeah, Amanda, we are viewing your screen. Section 4, registration.
Thank you. Let me just get you guys back up here. Hang on. My little panel thing for the Zoom went down towards the bottom, so I'm trying to get that back up. So I apologize. Thank you. Okay, hang on. I got this. My little page moved down there, so bear with me, guys. Sorry. Perfect. There we go. What was that little ribbon? I need it. All right. Great. So you guys can see the registration number 4, right?
Yes, Amanda, correct.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll get into this. So again, thank you, David, for the legislation portion of the report for today's forum. And thank you everybody for joining today. As you all know, I am the program assistant for the HOA Information Resource Center. So I process all the registrations, new registrations for the HOAs, renewals for expired HOAs throughout the year. So I'm gonna talk to you all about the registration portion of the report, which is where the active and expired report or HOAs are at, the management type, and the type of community that the HOA or the common interest community is in. So again, all this stems from the 2023's annual report. So many of you already know that HOA requires that all Colorado interest communities, so located in Colorado, register with the Division of Real Estate, the common interest communities. The Division of Real Estate and the HOA Center is required to collect information upon initial registration of an association. So just kind of want to go over with you all what the requirements are for a registration for an association for an HOA. First, the fee. So we go over the fee. The registration fee for an association is $44, except for any HOAs collecting $5,000 or less. So this will fall under whether or not an HOA pays for their initial renewal and registration for an association. We also collect the name of the association. We collect the type or a management company if an HOA is professionally managed. We want to know about the management company of the association. We want to know, of course, about the designated agent. So designated agent, if you all don't know what that is, basically it's a responsible individual who the HOA or the management company delegates as the person responsible to renew an association or initially register an association. So that person does change depending on, if there's a new management company or if the board members change from an HOA. So those DAs, what we call them as designated agents, do change. So that is a requirement also. The physical address of the association also is required. We do need the address of the HOA or the management company or the designated agent. And we also need the email address for the HOAs or management companies. If there's a website, we want to know about what the website is, of course, and the contact information for the management company or the HOA if it's self-managed, phone number, and of course the number of units that each association has. Again, sometimes they do change the numbers, so each time an association does renew, we get all these updates. So going down, and I'll show you guys some numbers and stuff. So I know David did go over, the legislation portion of it, and he did go over the House bills. So there is currently a House bill that's 24-1158 currently, that's in the General Assembly. So if that's passed, it would amend Section 401 of Kiowa, which is the Colorado Common Interest Ownership Act. So there is certain information that the HOA Center is not statutorily required to collect. And I can kind of go over, there's a few of these, but right now, currently, we do not collect this. Again, if passed, we will. So one is the current amount of the periodic assessments, so the dues charged per Colorado or common interest community. Two would be the percent increase or decrease in dues per HOA year over year. The number and dollar amount of special assessments levied per unit owner per common interest community during its fiscal year. The number of unit owners per common interest communities delinquent on their dues during its fiscal year. The number of liens foreclosed upon within a common interest community during its fiscal year. And the number of pending lawsuits within a common interest community during its fiscal year. And that is all here. In case you missed it, I apologize, I did not scroll down on that. And the fun stuff. So, with all the talk about registrations and what we do within the HOA office and the requirements for an initial registration. Of course, you might want to know where all these numbers come from. And as far as the registrations and the active registrations and expired and all that. So a lot of you love graphs and numbers. So here we go with that. So we're going to look at 4.1. The figure 4.1. So in this graph here, it does indicate that about 8,000 HOAs are registered as active with the HOA Center at the beginning of January 2023. So that number did increase just a bit to 8,140 by the end of the year. So that's an additional 205 HOAs. And the slope of the line in this figure will indicate that on average, there's about 26 new HOAs in 2023. And I'm going down to the next here. Go down to 4.2. That's another good one. All the expired HOAs. So this one here shows that about 3,000 HOAs were registered as expired with the HOA Center at the beginning of January 2023. So the number of expired HOAs increased to about 3,159 by the end of the year. So that's an additional 29 expired HOAs. And that slope there on this line of the graph will tell us that on average, there's about 3 additional HOAs that moved out of an expired status every month. All right, bear with me, y'all. And if you all have any questions, please feel free to enter them in that chat. And we'll go into this population portion of it. So as in the years past, the HOA Center will rely on the numbers provided publicly by the U.S. Census Bureau. So the HOA Center utilizes the average number of people per household, which as of February is just above 8,000. And at the end of 2023, there were, I'll show you guys this one. There was, well, maybe I'm on the wrong graph, so I apologize. Hang on one moment. Oh, okay. Perfect. I apologize. So I'm good. Okay, so at the end of 2023, there were 8,140 active HOAs and 3,159 expired HOAs. So that's total of 11,299 total HOAs in Colorado. So the number of units reported to the division at the end of 2023 for both active and expired registrations was 1,058,730. So we get that by, that's just on the average number of persons per household, the number of Coloradans living in HOAs at the end of 2023. So that is approximately like what, 2 million, almost, yeah, 2,720,000 people in HOAs in Colorado. So in case you all love numbers. Okay, so we're going to go on to the management type portion. And again, this is what we also require. We want to know, again, if there's a HOA, when it's registered, what is it managed, self-managed, or is it professionally managed? And so again, based off of all the registrations, this is where the numbers come from. So at the end of 2023, there were just above 8,000 registrations with the division. So figure 4.4 here will show that of the 8,140 active HOAs in Colorado, 6,486 registrations. Sorry. Scroll down here. Were reported as professionally managed, and 1,654 reported as self-managed. And so of the 1,654 self-managed common interest communities at the end of 2023, 61% are in planned communities, and 35% are in condos, and only 4% are identified as cooperatives. And that will show here. In case you wanted to see the numbers there. And of course, this one here will show these proportions and how it's all as far as the percentages. Again, you have 61% that are in planned communities, 4% cooperatives, and 35% in condominiums. And I want to go into the figure 4.6, which will go into professionally managed HOAs by type. And again, I know we did kind of go over this, but this is a similar analysis for professionally managed HOAs. So of the 6,486 active HOAs that are professionally managed, 49% are in planned communities. I think I said this, 50% are in condos, and only 1%, no, I didn't, is in cooperatives. It's a very similar numbers. And figure 4.7 here is the percentage of active registered HOAs that are professionally managed from 2018 to 2023. And that's here. And that is the conclusion of the registration portion when it comes to the annual report. So a lot of numbers, a lot of graphs, but very, very good information. Again, this all comes from initial registrations from HOAs, and when they renew, what they report to us and amend with us within the registration.
All right, thanks, Amanda. Let's see, I'll take over from here. So let's see if I can get steal your screen from you. Bear with us 1 second here. All right, so your screen should now be showing section 5 here on inquiries. Again, thanks Amanda for going over some of the registration components.
Yeah, thank you.
So what exactly are we looking at here? So let's talk about the inquiries that the HOA Center receives. So in order to try and understand exactly what we do, it should be helpful to paint a picture of what people are contacting us about exactly. To begin, figure 5.1 here illustrates that the HOA Center continues to see an increase in the number of inquiries received year over year. During 2023, the center received almost 4,500 inquiries on a wide variety of topics. Since 2020, that's about a 22% increase in the total number of inquiries received. So, you know, there's probably a few reasons why we're seeing this increase, but you know, notably COVID has vastly changed the way associations operate. And the past 4 years have seen quite a lot of changes in HOA law. So we think those are pretty good indicators of why we're seeing an increased number of inquiries here. So how do we respond to these inquiries exactly then? So typically an inquiring party will write in with the concern they have in their community. It could be about, for example, how their board is running meetings, how to properly fill out a proxy form, how a special assessment should or should not be levied on the homeowners, budgets, landscaping changes, architectural review decisions. So those are just a couple, just to name a few. So while we cannot provide legal advice here, our aim is to direct consumers to the applicable area of law where they can make an informed decision about their rights and responsibilities. So that decision might involve attending, you know, just attending their next board meeting or going to their annual meeting to increase participation in their community. It could also involve writing to their property manager or possibly engaging in dispute resolution or contacting an attorney. So we also provide referrals to nonprofit organizations. Namely, a couple of those are the Colorado Department of Local Affairs, Colorado Public Utilities Commission, or the Colorado Civil Rights Division, just to name a couple. So figure 5.2 here illustrates the top 25 inquiries that we received between September and December 2023. So as you can see, the number one inquiry we received is named general inquiry, just because that inquiry was so unique that we couldn't determine a specific category. So that just goes to speak to how vast and I guess unique some of the inquiries we receive are. They're not always exactly pertaining to parking or fees, for example, but every day is unique here. I'll guarantee you that. So as the HOA task force was a popular topic of discussion among consumers and industry professionals, we saw over 100 task force related inquiries just in this 5 months span. So kind of moving down the x-axis here, you know, some of our other popular categories include records requests, substantive questions about Kiowa, insurance requirements, maintenance concerns, and file a complaint, which is basically our information on, you know, what do we do with the complaint? How do I file a complaint? Should I file a complaint? So we do take time to respond to those inquiries as well. CAM issues down here. There's one point that should be made here. So it shouldn't be misconceived that, you know, we don't receive a whole lot of inquiries related to CAM issues, but rather more so that we might see an inquiry where the CAM failed to provide adequate maintenance according to the homeowner. So that inquiry would be filed under maintenance. Or we might get an inquiry concerning, oh, well, the CAM, you know, they didn't submit an insurance claim on time, or they didn't do it properly according to the association governing documents. That might be filed under insurance. So you shouldn't, just because that number is kind of low, shouldn't necessarily mean that we don't see a high number of CAM issues coming in, but rather they might be tabulated elsewhere. And for purposes of this report, this column will usually be something to do with like, our CAM, there's an issue with the contract between the association and the CAM, for example, or we want to know how, you know, is it possible to terminate the CAM contract? That would be tabulated under CAM issues. All right, so let's move on here to section 6 in complaints. So of course, another large facet of this office is collecting and analyzing complaints. So we accept complaints typically from aggrieved parties. And first of all, kind of one area of confusion that we see here is who exactly is the complainant and who exactly is the respondent. So in the legal world, the complainant is the party who makes the complaint in a legal action or proceeding. For purposes of the HOA Center, the complainant is most of the time an aggrieved homeowner who believes they've suffered some sort of wrongdoing by their HOA or community manager. Occasionally, we do receive complaints from board members alleging some sort of wrongdoing by other board members or the community manager. But for the most part, the complainant is the homeowner. So the other important term to recognize is the respondent. A respondent is the person or entity who answers the complaint. For our purposes, this is usually the association board of directors or the community manager, though we may also see the declarant or vendor identified as the respondent. So in 2023, the HOA Center, we received precisely one less complaint than we did in 2022, which is kind of odd. But in 2023, we got, where's our numbers there? We received about 300. I'm pulling up my report here. So figure 6.1 here compares the number of complaints received in 2022 versus 2023. So interestingly, the number is near congruent across every month, as you can see here with the peaks. There are only two areas where there are different peaks in February and August. So one possible reason for this increased number of complaints in February may be because the new budget was just recently implemented and homeowners are trying to understand how that looks in terms of increased dues or different expenditures that they might not be aware of. And they may come to realize that this time of year usually revolves around the new budget being passed. So another point, and then August, it's kind of difficult to explain this trend here, but August is usually the time when some of the new laws are passed or become effective. So 2022, did see HB 22-1137, but that might not have been, homeowners might not have truly fully understood it. It might have taken some time for them to understand it with the General Assembly and everything. So that could explain this kind of trend difference in the number of complaints there. But overall, though, another point worth mentioning is the HOA Center received 50 anonymous complaints in 2023, or about 15% of the total number of complaints received overall. The HOA Center accepts complaints anonymously to help alleviate any concern about retaliation or harassment in their communities. So what do we do with a complaint once a complaint is received? Well, the first thing we do is we analyze it by complaint category. As mentioned in the definition section at the top, a complaint category refers to one or more issues experienced in an HOA. The most common being communication with homeowners and the board, improper or selective enforcement of covenants, and accounting, finances, and excessive assessments are usually the most common that we see. So how do we track these complaint categories, or what do we do with the information? So we track them by region. We also track them by community type, by size of the common interest community, and also by management, arrangement, and respondent type. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of scrolling quickly through the report here, but so figure 6.2 here, it shows the regional numbers that are used in our analysis. It shouldn't be too surprising, but it's pretty straightforward in that, the greater the population of the region, the more complaints we see, generally speaking. So it's no surprise, therefore, that the greater Denver metropolitan area saw the highest number of complaints, followed by Colorado Springs and Grand Junction. And that's kind of illustrated in figure 6.3 here. So Denver surrounding, Denver Central, and Front Range are leading with complaint categories, and then South Central, that's Colorado Springs, excuse me, northwest was Grand Junction area. So moving on to community type. So the HOA Center identifies 4 different types of KICs in order to satisfy the definition of a KIC in Kiowa. And those are condominiums, cooperatives, planned communities, and timeshare units. So as you can see in figure 6.4, the vast majority, if not all, of complaints received fall into the condominium or planned community categories, types of communities. One possibility, the number of complaints in cooperatives and timeshares is so low is because the public might not truly understand, or they might not realize that a cooperative or a timeshare could belong to a homeowners association. And I think therefore they might be unaware that they have the capability to file a complaint with the HOA Center. But generally speaking, condos, planned communities see the most number of complaints. So if we're moving into figure 6.5 here, so this was included to kind of show a high level overview of the number of common interest communities in Colorado by unit size. So as you can see, the median number of units for actively registered KICs in Colorado is 42 units, and the average number of units in actively registered KICs in Colorado is approximately 110. So when we're analyzing the number of complaint categories by KIC size, it's interesting here to point out that the number steadily increases. Let's see if I have the correct figure here. The number steadily increases here. So again, we're talking complaint categories by HOA unit size, the number of units in the HOA. It steadily increases until we get up to about 101 to 500 units. And then you can notice a decrease here for HOAs with in between 501 to 1,000 units. One possible conclusion is that the larger KICs are more well ran by professional management companies who likely have more robust dispute resolution policies compared to some of the smaller HOAs who might not have those types of dispute resolution. But it's more research is probably needed in this arena. So figure 6.7 shows that 71% of complaint categories were directed toward a professionally managed KIC compared to 27% directed toward a self-managed KIC. So one might wonder why these two charts appear to be opposed, like diametrically opposed. Well, it is entirely possible that the majority of these 71% of complaint categories were directed toward professionally managed KICs that are in the smaller unit size HOAs, not necessarily the HOAs with larger units, but more likely than not, in those with between 11 and 500 units would possibly fall in this chart on the pie graph here that you see. So the last chart here in 6.8 shows the complaint categories by respondent type. So assuming the respondent was properly identified during the complaint intake process that I previously was talking about, many complaint categories are levied toward the board for failure to communicate, not following guideline documents, etc. But it's also important to note that a board may also be culpable for not ensuring that CAM is adhering to Kiowa and or the association governing documents. So in those cases, which could be, a pretty solid, maybe 25%, the complaint category was attributed to the board instead of the CAM. So as new laws are passed and priorities are set in local municipalities, I do think the HOA Center, we will expect to see this proportion change over time. All right, let's get to some of the goals that the HOA Center is focusing on. Review 2023. So in 2023, I started here late 2022. In 2023, we really did put a focus on education and outreach. HOA forums that we conducted online, we think allowed for maximum consumer participation and engagement, especially with the ability to pose your questions in a live setting. So we thought that definitely makes our offerings more valuable to the public. We did continue to grow our presence on YouTube. which is quantified in figure 712 here. So this data up here suggests that, consumers are most interested in attorney perspectives as they relate to homeowner rights of living in a common interest community, in addition to topics such as reserve funds, meetings, and legislative updates. So this chart here shows the total number of views that we have on our YouTube page for each of these respective HOA forums that we conducted in 2023. The one point I'll mention here is the low number of views that we have for Spanish translated topics doesn't necessarily mean that the Spanish speaking population is not interested in HOA matters, but rather it more likely means that the Colorado Spanish population is not aware of the resources offered by the HOA Center and additional outreach is needed. All right, so that, and actually I did want to include here some of the pending, we do include important resources for readers at the end here in section 8. The Colorado Bar Association is a great tool to use to find a licensed qualified lawyer in the state. The Colorado General Assembly is also another excellent resource for anyone interested in HOA law or matters. You can go there to look up bills that are currently finding their way through the legislature, and you can also see bills that have been sent to the governor or that have been signed and became law. Colorado Judicial Branch has some great resources, forums offered by or that have been approved by the Colorado Supreme Court in case you are involved in any sort of litigation or dispute resolution. Colorado Legal Services has services for those who qualify based on income, as well as help for seniors in the state. And we do include the Community Association Institute as well. They're a trade group, a private trade group that offers information to users on help finding a credentialed or qualified community association manager. And they do offer excellent education, and they also have a vendor tool that you can use if you're trying to find, say, an accountant or a landscaper or any other number of businesses that assist HOAs. So at the end here, I did want to include, if you're on YouTube later, or if you want to visit the video later, you can come to this page and pause it. But the number of the bills that are in the session now, which I think are of interest to HOA parties, there's quite a lot of them, so I'm not going to go over all of them, but feel free to pause your video and look them up yourself to see kind of what's going on in the HOA industry in Colorado. So real quick too, I just wanted to see if I can do a tour of our website. And actually I did want to do a quick tour of this is the Colorado General Assembly's website. If you've not been here, I highly encourage you to pay a visit. But to look up a bill, I can show you here real quick how to do that. You just click on bills, do the drop down and click all bills. And there's multiple ways of searching for bills. This is usually how I do it. And one bill I just happen to know of is 1078, which is contemplating the regulation of community association managers. So you just type it in the search box here. It pops up here displaying the results, and you can click on it. It shows who the prime sponsors of the bill are, as well as kind of a high-level overview and summary of what the bill is about. You can also view the bill text as it's currently written. And you can see here that it's been introduced. The status of the bill is introduced. We can go back here. Down here, you can also see the status. It's currently under consideration. And these tabs here will provide some more information on this bill. The fiscal note that was prepared, the committees that have heard the arguments, any amendments that have been proposed, the history of the bill. I think this is an important one that kind of allows you to follow the progress of the bill and what's going on with it exactly, as well as the sponsors and any related bills. So I think it's a great resource if you're interested in learning about any changes in HOA law. And so moving over here, finally, I wanted to show all of you how to access the annual report from our website. So if you go to dre.colorado.gov, that is the Division of Real Estate's primary website. And then you can go to Division Programs and down to HOA Office. I would recommend clicking on HOA Office. These tabs will take you to some other sites and links on our website. But if you click on HOA Office, it takes you to our website, which again, we're the HOA Information Resource Center. So if you scroll down to the bottom, you can file a complaint as well here through clicking on this link. You can also register your HOA through here. This contains all the information you need on the steps needed to get your HOA registered or renewed. And there's some educational resources on these other links. But again, if you scroll down to the bottom, go to the caret over here for education and outreach opportunities, click it, and then that expands and lists, this is how you access our HOA forums. I'm sorry, the annual reports is coming up next. But to access our previous HOA forums, you'll go to the caret education and outreach opportunities, recent HOA forums, presentations and videos. You click on that, and that gives you kind of a nice list here of everything that we've offered, including the PowerPoint slides and a link to the YouTube page where you can watch the video over to your heart's content. And we do have this going back to about early 2022, mid 2022. So for the annual report, again, you're down on the bottom here, and you'll just go to more about us and annual reports. Click on this, and this will show all of our annual reports from dating back to 2013 until present year, 2023. And this should be in a PDF format when you click it, so you can manipulate it as you see fit. But again, let's see, that about concludes our presentation today. Let me see if we had any, I wanted to open it up to some questions. We have our Q&A enabled. Let me see if I can just read out any questions that might have been posed here. See if there's anything pending. Amanda and David, did you notice anything while I'm kind of fumbling around here?
No, I did not see any questions in there.
I think we've answered all of the pending questions that are out there. Yes. So, but a couple questions. I mean, one individual asked about the details related to it. How do I find out about information if any complaints have been filed against my HOA? That could be answered through a Colorado Open Records request. And there's a link in the Q&A answers there for anyone that is interested in a little bit more information about how to conduct a open records request.
If there's no other questions, we're going to end it here a couple minutes before 2:10. Thank you all for joining. We appreciate you coming to learn a little bit about our HOA annual report. Again, just shoot us an email if you have any additional questions. And thank you, Amanda. Thank you, David, for being with us today. And we hope everybody has a fantastic weekend. So thanks again, everyone, for joining, and have a great rest of your day.
Okay.
Bye-bye.